Zurich, Switzerland, October 17th, 2018, 9:42 p.m. Rain pressed softly against the windows of a third-floor apartment near the lake. Not the kind of rain that forces you inside, the kind that simply exists. Inside, Dr. Emily Carter stood at the kitchen counter preparing dinner. Her movements were steady, automatic. She wasn't thinking about what she was doing. Across from her, sitting on the edge of the dining table, was her son, Oliver Carter, 6 years old. His feet didn't reach the floor. They swung slowly, tapping the chair legs now and then. In his hands was a glass of cold water, condensation forming on the outside. He traced it with his finger, erased it, started again. Nothing in the room felt unusual. Emily had spent more than a decade working with children. She knew the difference between performance and spontaneity, between repetition and invention. This moment didn't announce itself. Oliver didn't look up when he spoke. "Mom?" Emily turned slightly. "Yes?" There was a pause, brief, almost polite. "Why are people so afraid of dying?" The knife stopped mid-motion, not abruptly, just enough. Emily placed it down on the cutting board. "What made you think about that?" she asked. Oliver shrugged. "They act like everything ends," he said, "but it doesn't." The sentence came out clean, no searching for words, no hesitation. Emily leaned back against the counter. "What do you mean?" she asked. Oliver wiped the glass with his sleeve. "When someone dies," he said, "they just change where they are." Emily watched him more closely now. "They leave their body," he continued, "like taking off a jacket that doesn't fit anymore." Children usually decorate ideas like this. Add colors, make them softer. Oliver didn't. "No one told you that, right?" Emily asked. He shook his head. "No." A moment passed. "I already knew." Emily asked the next question without thinking. It was a reflex. "How do you know?" Oliver slid off the table and crossed the kitchen. He picked up a stuffed animal from the floor, holding it under one arm. "People get tired," he said, "trying to fix everything in one life." Emily's fingers tightened slightly against the counter. "So, sometimes," Oliver added, "starting over is easier." Emily didn't interrupt. "As a baby," he said, "with a new family." Silence settled into the room. Not heavy, not loud, just present. Oliver turned and ran toward his room. The conversation ended the way it began, without ceremony. Emily stood where she was. Dinner continued cooking on the stove. The rain outside didn't change. That night she didn't write anything down. She didn't label the moment. She told herself what she had told parents countless times before. Children experiment with ideas. They repeat things they overhear. They explore boundaries. It was a comfortable explanation. The next morning, breakfast unfolded normally. Oliver spilled milk, apologized, cleaned it up. Daniel read the news on his phone. Traffic, markets, weather, no one mentioned death. At school drop-off, Oliver ran ahead without looking back. His backpack bounced against his shoulders. Emily remained in the car longer than usual. At work, she reviewed case files, standard assessments, nothing unusual, but one phrase returned again and again: internal narrative coherence. Children imagine many things, but imagination shifts when questioned. It contradicts itself. That evening, Emily didn't bring the subject up. They ate dinner, homework, a short cartoon before bed, routine. As Emily tucked Oliver in, he stared at the ceiling. Mom? Yes? People don't remember everything when they come back. Emily paused. Come back from where? She asked. From before. A pause. Most of it's too heavy, he added, so it stays behind. Emily smoothed the blanket. Do you remember everything? She asked. Oliver shook his head. No. She waited. Just some parts, he said. What parts? Oliver thought for a moment. The tired parts. He rolled onto his side. That's why babies cry, he added. They don't know the words yet. Emily didn't respond. She stayed until his breathing slowed. That night she opened her laptop. She didn't search for reincarnation. She didn't search for past lives. She searched safer terms. Age at which children understand death. Imaginative speech in early childhood. Consistency in child narratives. She closed the laptop without reading the results, because the problem wasn't explanation. It was repetition. 3 days later, Oliver sat at the kitchen table drawing. He split the page in half. On the left, dark, crowded lines. On the right, open space, lighter colors. Emily pointed. What's this? Oliver didn't look up. This is before. And this? After. After what? He shrugged. After it's done. That night, Emily opened a notebook. Not a research log, not a case file. She wrote one line. October 21st, 2017. Personal record. She didn't write as a psychologist. She wrote as a witness. And without realizing it, she crossed the line between observing something strange and acknowledging that it was staying. Emily didn't tell Daniel right away, not because she was hiding something. There just wasn't a clear way to say it. Nothing Oliver had said sounded urgent, or dangerous, or disruptive. It simply didn't go away. The following days passed without incident. Mornings were rushed, shoes misplaced, backpacks forgotten and retrieved at the door. Oliver complained about math homework, asked for pancakes instead of toast, argued about bedtime. Normal. If someone had asked Emily how her son was doing, she would have answered honestly, fine. And she would have meant it. Still, she began listening differently, not closely. That would have changed things. She listened the way professionals do when they're waiting for a pattern to break. On Wednesday evening, Oliver sat on the living room floor assembling a puzzle. A landscape, mountains, a lake. He placed the pieces carefully, methodically. This part's wrong, he said quietly. Emily glanced over. Why? It doesn't fit the rest, he replied. She nodded. A moment passed. Some people get stuck, Oliver said without looking up. Stuck where? Emily asked. In the middle. He adjusted a piece, then another. They don't finish, he added. Emily folded laundry. What happens then? She asked. Oliver considered this. They come back confused, he said. They don't know why things feel heavy. Emily didn't respond right away. Who comes back? She asked. Oliver shrugged. People. The word was broad, unhelpful, and yet complete. Emily waited for him to add something dramatic, something childish. He didn't. The puzzle was finished. Oliver pushed it aside and turned on the television. The moment passed. That night, Emily told herself she was doing exactly what she was trained to do, not reinforcing, not challenging, observing. At work, she reviewed diagnostic criteria, language acquisition benchmarks, narrative consistency models. She highlighted nothing. But she did open an old folder on her computer. Unpublished notes, discarded cases, files labeled non-clinical. She hadn't looked at them in years. They all had one thing in common. Children between 4 and 7. Short windows of unusual verbal clarity. Statements that didn't escalate. They simply faded. Most had been labeled imagination, or stress response, or coincidence. None had required intervention. That reassured her. Almost. On Friday, Emily finally mentioned something to Daniel. Not the content, just the tone. "He's been saying some interesting things lately," she said casually while they washed dishes. Daniel nodded. "About what?" Emily hesitated. "Big ideas," she said. "Nothing concerning." Daniel smiled slightly. "He's 6, he said. That's his job." Emily let the comment stand. That night, Oliver had trouble sleeping, not crying, not restless, just awake. Emily sat on the edge of his bed. "What's wrong?" she asked. Oliver stared at the door. "Do people have to come back?" he asked. Emily chose her words carefully. "What do you mean?" "Do they have to?" he repeated. "Or can they stop?" Emily exhaled slowly. "I don't think anyone has to do anything," she said. Oliver nodded. "Good," he said. A pause. "I think I'm done." Emily didn't ask with what. The next morning, Emily received an email from Oliver's teacher. It was brief. Oliver has been doing well academically. However, during free drawing time, he's been separating his pages into before and after sections. When asked about it, he says it's just how it is. No disruption noted. Emily read the message twice. The wording was neutral, professional. That mattered. She replied with a short, "Thank you." No follow-up questions. That afternoon, she picked Oliver up from school. As they walked to the car, he asked, "Do teachers write things down about kids?" "Yes," she said. "Sometimes." "Even when nothing's wrong?" "Yes." Oliver nodded. "Okay." That night, Emily opened her notebook again. She didn't add interpretations. She didn't underline anything. She wrote dates, times, exact phrases. She wrote what was said and what wasn't, because somewhere between imagination and memory, there was a space she hadn't been trained to label, and for the first time, she wasn't sure it would close on its own. The second message from the school arrived a week later, not urgent, not flagged, just there. Emily read it while standing in the hallway, coat still on, keys in her hand. During a classroom discussion about families, Oliver mentioned that not all parents are new. When asked to clarify, he said some parents feel familiar before you meet them. No further elaboration. Class continued normally. Emily didn't move for a moment. The phrasing was careful, neutral. That mattered. Teachers are trained to filter, to ignore what doesn't repeat. This had repeated. She folded the phone into her pocket and walked into the living room. Oliver was on the floor, lining up toy cars by color, blue, red, yellow, not racing them, not crashing them, just placing them. "Hey," she said. He looked up. "Hi. How was school?" "Okay. Nothing else." Emily sat down on the couch. "What were you talking about today?" she asked. Oliver slid a blue car forward slightly, adjusting its place. "Families," he said. "And what did you say?" He thought for a moment. "That some people feel familiar," he replied. "Before you know them?" He nodded. "Like when you walk into a room and you already know where the door is." Emily watched his hands. "That doesn't happen to everyone," he added. She didn't respond. Oliver glanced at her. "It's not important," he said. "Most people don't need it." "Need what?" Emily asked. To remember, he said. Then, almost as an afterthought, it makes things heavier. Emily felt the familiar tightening again, the one she still didn't have a word for. That evening, Daniel noticed, not the words, the silence. You okay? He asked as they cleaned up after dinner. Emily hesitated. He's been saying things at school too, she said. Daniel looked up. What kind of things? Nothing disruptive, she replied quickly. That's what makes it hard to explain. Daniel dried his hands with a towel. So explain it badly, he said. Emily smiled despite herself. She tried. She kept it simple. Dates, phrases. Daniel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he didn't react the way she expected. He didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss it. He leaned back against the counter. That's specific, he said. Emily nodded. That's what worries me. Daniel thought for a moment. Does he seem scared? He asked. No. Confused? No. Different than before? Emily shook her head. He's exactly the same, she said. That's the problem. Daniel didn't answer right away. Kids say weird things, he said finally, but they usually stop when you question them. Emily didn't respond. That night, Oliver woke up just after midnight, not crying, not calling out, just standing in the doorway of Emily and Daniel's bedroom. Emily sat up immediately. What's wrong? She asked. Oliver shook his head. I just wanted to check, he said. Check what? That this is still where I'm supposed to be. Emily pulled the blanket aside. Oliver climbed in, curled up between them, and fell asleep within minutes. The next morning, Emily found a drawing folded in half on the kitchen table. Oliver had left for school already. On one side, a small figure standing at the edge of a dark shape. On the other, the same figure, lighter, farther away. No labels, just a thin line between the two halves. Emily didn't ask about it that evening. Instead, she did something she had avoided until now. She opened her contacts list, scrolled past colleagues, past former supervisors, and stopped at one name, Dr. Michael Rosen, neuropsychologist, old collaborator, skeptical, careful, the kind of person who didn't indulge theories. She didn't call, not yet. But she didn't close the list either, because somewhere between home and school, between private moments and written records, Oliver's words were no longer living only inside the house. And once something leaves that space, it doesn't belong to just one explanation anymore. Emily waited 3 days before calling, not because she hoped things would change, but because she wanted to be certain of one thing, that she wasn't already leaning. On the 4th morning, she dialed the number from her office. Michael, she said when he answered, it's Emily. There was a brief pause on the line. Emily Carter, he replied. I was wondering when I'd hear from you again. She didn't smile. I need your opinion, she said, off the record. There was another pause. About a patient? He asked. No, Emily said, about my son. That changed the tone. They met 2 days later in a quiet cafe near the university hospital. No clipboards, no consent forms, just coffee and time. Emily didn't start with theories, she started with dates. What was said, when it was said, what wasn't said afterward. Michael listened without interruption. He didn't nod, didn't react. When she finished, he asked one question. Have you corrected him? No. Have you rewarded the behavior? No. Have you recorded him? No. Michael leaned back. Good, he said. Emily waited. At this age, he continued, children can construct internally consistent narratives. Emily nodded. That's what I thought. But, he added, they usually collapse when examined. Emily didn't respond. Does he change the story when questioned? Michael asked. No. Does he embellish? No. Michael frowned slightly. That's unusual, he said. Emily said nothing. I'm not saying it's pathological, Michael added quickly. And I'm not saying it's meaningful. He paused. I'm saying it's contained. Contained how? Emily asked. Michael stirred his coffee. It doesn't expand, he said. It doesn't recruit. What do you mean? It's not pulling attention. It's not demanding belief. It's not escalating. Emily recognized the terminology. It's self-limiting, she said. Yes, Michael replied, and that matters. Emily looked down at her hands. So what do I do? Michael didn't answer immediately. You don't frame it, he said finally. You don't label it. And if it continues, then we observe, he said, carefully. Emily hesitated. Should I talk to him about it? She asked. Michael shook his head. Only if he brings it up, he said, and only with clarification, not challenge. Emily nodded. They didn't schedule a follow-up. That was deliberate. That evening, Emily told Daniel about the meeting. She kept it factual, neutral. Daniel listened. So, no diagnosis, he said. No, Emily replied. No explanation either. Daniel exhaled slowly. I don't know whether that's comforting or not. Emily didn't answer. That night, Oliver sat at the kitchen table drawing again. Emily watched from a distance. What are you making? She asked. Oliver didn't look up. A map, he said. A map of what? Of where you stop, he replied. Emily waited. And then? She asked. Oliver drew a line, thin, careful. Then you don't need it anymore. He put the pencil down. Emily felt a sudden urge to ask something direct, something clarifying. She didn't, because Michael had been clear. Don't frame it. Don't label it. Later, as Emily tucked Oliver into bed, he spoke. Mom? Yes? Some people think remembering makes you special. Emily waited. It doesn't, Oliver said. It just makes you tired. He rolled onto his side. I don't want to be tired anymore. Emily stayed until he fell asleep. In the hallway, she paused, not to think, just to breathe, because for the first time, a trained skeptic had listened and not closed the door. The change didn't arrive all at once. There was no clear moment to point to, no sentence that marked it. It showed up quietly, in absences. Oliver talked less, not withdrawn, not distant, just less. At breakfast, he ate without commentary. At school drop-off, he waved instead of running ahead. In the evenings, he chose puzzles over television. Nothing alarming. Emily noticed anyway. She told herself not to assign meaning. Patterns appear when you expect them to. Still, she began writing shorter entries in her notebook. Fewer words, longer gaps between dates. On Tuesday, Oliver came home with a mild fever. Nothing dramatic. 37.8 degrees Celsius. Emily kept him home the next day. They stayed in the living room, cartoons on low volume, blanket on the couch. Oliver lay still, eyes open. Does it hurt? Emily asked. He shook his head. Just heavy, he said. Emily didn't ask what he meant. That afternoon, Michael Rosen called. Emily hadn't told him about the fever. That was coincidence. "I've been thinking about what you said," he told her. Emily closed the door to her office. "About Oliver?" "Yes," Michael said. "There's something I want to be clear about." She waited. "When children present internal narratives like this," he continued, "they usually do one of two things." Emily didn't interrupt. "They either expand," he said, "or they resolve." "And this?" Emily asked. Michael paused. "This sounds like resolution." Emily leaned back in her chair. "Is that good?" she asked. "It's expected," he said carefully. "Expected how?" Michael exhaled. "The brain doesn't like carrying material it can't integrate," he said, "so it lets go." Emily didn't respond. "Sometimes," he added, "letting go looks like forgetting." That night, Oliver slept early. Emily checked on him twice. Both times, he was still. Later, as she closed his door, he spoke without opening his eyes. "I don't think I need to say it again," he said. Emily froze. "Say what?" she asked. "The things from before," he replied. She stepped closer. "Why not?" "Because you heard them," he said. And that was enough. Emily sat on the edge of the bed. "Do you remember them?" she asked. Oliver was quiet for a moment. "Not really," he said. A pause. "Just the feeling." "And what does it feel like?" she asked. He thought. "Lighter." Emily stayed until his breathing slowed. In the kitchen later, Daniel watched her pour a glass of water and forget to drink it. "He okay?" he asked. "Yes," Emily said. Daniel waited. "And?" he asked. Emily hesitated. "I think something is ending," she said. Daniel nodded slowly. "Is that bad?" Emily shook her head. "I don't know," she said, "but it feels finished." That weekend, Oliver didn't draw. He played outside, rode his bike, asked for pancakes again. Normal. On Sunday evening, Emily opened her notebook. She read from the beginning. Dates, phrases, silences. She closed it. Because for the first time since October, there was nothing new to add, and that absence felt deliberate. By the following week, the pattern had almost disappeared. Not abruptly, not cleanly. It thinned. Oliver stopped offering explanations, stopped correcting things that didn't fit, stopped splitting pages in half. When Emily asked how school was, he answered with one word: "Good." Nothing more. At night he fell asleep quickly, too quickly. Emily noticed how little time passed between the light turning off and his breathing changing, as if something no longer needed to stay awake. On Wednesday, Michael sent a short message. "If it's resolving, let it resolve. Don't reopen it. Even curiosity can become pressure." Emily read it twice. She didn't reply. That evening, Oliver sat on the floor, building with blocks. A tower. Careful, symmetrical. He stacked the final piece and leaned back, examining it. "Is it finished?" Emily asked. Oliver considered the structure. "Yes," he said. "Does it need anything else?" He shook his head. "It stands by itself." Emily watched him knock it over moments later, without frustration. He didn't rebuild it. Later, while brushing his teeth, Oliver asked, "Do you think people worry too much about remembering?" Emily paused. "Sometimes," she said. "Why?" He shrugged. "Because forgetting makes room." Emily didn't ask for what. That night she opened her notebook again. The entries had stopped 5 days earlier. She read the last one aloud, quietly, then closed the notebook and placed it in the bottom drawer of her desk. Not hidden, just put away. At dinner the next evening, Daniel mentioned a project deadline, traffic updates, weekend plans. Oliver interrupted once. "Can we go to the lake on Saturday?" Daniel smiled. "Sure." No metaphors, no wait, just a plan. Later, as Emily tucked Oliver in, he hesitated at the doorway. "Mom?" "Yes?" "You don't have to worry," he said. Emily waited. "I'm not carrying it anymore." Her hand tightened on the doorframe. "Carrying what?" she asked. Oliver thought. "The thing that made everything feel older." Emily stepped closer. "Where did it go?" He shrugged. "It doesn't go anywhere," he said. "It just stops being heavy." He climbed into bed and pulled the blanket up. "I think that's what growing is," he added. "Not adding things." "Then what?" Emily asked, putting them down. She stayed until he fell asleep. In the hallway, the house felt larger than usual. Not emptier, just quieter. Emily didn't open the drawer again that night. She didn't need to, because whatever had been forming itself into language had finished doing so, and whatever remained had chosen silence. Time didn't mark the change. There was no anniversary, no date to circle. Weeks passed, then another month. Winter settled into Zurich the way it always did, gradually, without asking permission. Oliver grew, not suddenly, just enough for Emily to notice that his jackets were tighter, his shoes closer to the edge of being replaced. He laughed easily again, argued about chores, forgot to put his backpack away. Everything that had once drawn Emily's attention now blended back into the background, and yet she found herself returning to the same thought. Not what happened, but what stayed. The notebook remained in the drawer. She didn't open it, not because she was afraid of what was written there, but because reopening it felt like changing something that had already settled. One afternoon, Emily ran into Oliver's teacher at the grocery store. Small talk, weather, end-of-term schedules. Then, casually, "He seems lighter lately," the teacher said. "More present." Emily nodded. "Yes," she replied. There was no follow-up question. That mattered. At home, Oliver worked on a school project about family history, photographs spread across the table, grandparents, old birthdays. "Can I use these?" he asked, holding up a photo of Emily as a child. "Of course," she said. He studied it for a moment. "You look different," he said. "Younger," Emily replied. "No," Oliver said. "Quieter." Emily didn't correct him. Later that night, she finally opened the notebook again, not to add anything, to read, dates first, then phrases. She noticed something she hadn't seen before. The entries weren't clustered around moments of excitement. They appeared around pauses, silences, transitions, moments where nothing else was happening. She closed the notebook slowly, because that realization changed the shape of the story. This hadn't been about knowledge. It had been about timing. That evening, Michael Rosen sent one final message. If nothing new has emerged, that's a good sign. Integration often looks like disappearance. Emily didn't reply. She didn't need to. On Saturday morning, Oliver sat at the kitchen table drawing again. Emily watched, careful not to hover. When he finished, he pushed the paper toward her. A simple drawing, a single figure standing near water. No lines dividing the page. No before, no after. Just space. "What is it?" Emily asked. Oliver shrugged. "It's where you stop thinking about it." She nodded. That night, as Emily turned off the lights, Oliver spoke one last time. Not about death, not about before. "Mom?" "Yes?" "Some things only make sense while they're happening." Emily waited. "After that," he said, "they're not meant to be held on to." He turned onto his side, and that was all. In the dark hallway, Emily stood still, because she understood now what her role had been, not to interpret, not to explain, but to listen while it passed. And whatever this had been, had never asked to stay. Time did what it always does. It moved forward without asking whether anything had been resolved. Years passed. Oliver turned 9, then 10. His voice changed slightly. His questions shifted toward different things: school, friends, rules that felt unfair. Nothing about him suggested residue. No recurring themes, no drawings split in half, no careful metaphors. Emily noticed this with professional relief and personal hesitation, because absence can mean many things. She changed jobs during that time, moved from clinical work into teaching, lectures, small seminars. She spoke about cognition, memory, how children organize experience. She never mentioned Oliver, not even as an example. The notebook remained where it was, in the bottom drawer, unopened. One evening, years later, Emily found herself alone in the apartment. Daniel was away on a business trip. Oliver was at a friend's house. The quiet felt different now. Not charged, just empty. She opened the drawer. The notebook was thinner than she remembered. She sat at the table and read it from beginning to end. No annotations, no conclusions, just records. She noticed something that had escaped her before. The entries didn't describe growth, they described release. She closed the notebook and didn't put it back. She left it on the table. That night, Oliver came home late. Shoes kicked off. Backpack dropped. "Hey," he said. "Hey," Emily replied. He poured himself water and stood at the counter. Then, without looking at her, "Do you still have that notebook?" Emily didn't answer right away. "Yes," she said. Oliver nodded. "That's good." He paused. "You don't need it anymore, though." Emily turned toward him. "Why do you say that?" Oliver shrugged. "Because it already did its job." She waited. "So did I," he added. Emily felt something tighten, then loosen. She didn't ask what he meant. He picked up the notebook, flipped through a few pages, then closed it gently. "I don't remember any of this," he said, "but I know it mattered." Emily swallowed. "How do you know?" Oliver smiled faintly. "Because you're calmer now." He placed the notebook back on the table. Later that night, Emily sat alone again. The notebook stayed where it was. For the first time, she considered that memory isn't always about holding on. Sometimes it's about witnessing something long enough for it to let go of you. The email arrived on an ordinary Tuesday morning. No subject line that demanded attention, no urgency markers. Just a name Emily recognized. Michael Rosen. She didn't open it right away. She finished her coffee, answered 2 student emails, closed a browser tab she had been staring at without reading. Then she opened it. "Emily, I'm part of a small interdisciplinary review group. We're compiling anonymized case material on early childhood narrative integration. Your name came up. I wanted to ask carefully whether you might be willing to contribute something informal. No publication, no attribution, just context." Emily read the message twice, not for what it asked, for what it avoided asking. There was no mention of Oliver, no reference to age, no hint of expectation. That restraint mattered. She closed the laptop. For the rest of the day, the idea followed her quietly, not insistently, just present. In class, a student asked about memory consolidation in early development. Emily answered from the slides. Clear, measured, but she noticed her pacing slow, her examples shorten. That evening, she told Daniel about the email. He listened without interrupting. "They want the story," he said finally. "They want something," Emily replied. "I'm not sure it's the same thing." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Do you want to tell it?" he asked. Emily hesitated. "I don't know how," she said, "without turning it into something else." Daniel nodded. "Once it's written for others," he said, "it doesn't belong to you anymore." That was the problem. That night, Emily took the notebook out again. She didn't open it. She placed it on the table and sat across from it as if it were another person in the room. She imagined the questions. When did it start? How often did he speak? Did the content evolve? Was there reinforcement? All reasonable, all insufficient, because none of them captured the most important part, that nothing had been pursued, nothing had been encouraged. Whatever had happened had unfolded on its own and then stopped. Late that night, Oliver came into the kitchen for water. He noticed the notebook immediately. "Someone asked about it," Emily said before he could. Oliver nodded. "I figured." She waited. "You can say no," he said. "You don't owe anyone that time." Emily looked at him. "It wasn't your choice," she said. Oliver thought for a moment. "No," he replied, "but it was my part." He poured the water slowly. "If you tell it," he added, "tell it like it didn't need an ending." Emily smiled faintly. "That's not how case reports work," she said. Oliver shrugged. "Then don't make it a case." He left the room. Emily stayed. The notebook remained closed, because for the first time, the question wasn't what had happened. It was whether speaking about it again would reopen something that had already done what it came to do. Emily agreed to one condition. There would be no interview, no audio, no video, no live questions. She would write something, once, and it would be limited to what could be verified. Dates, ages, exact phrasing, nothing else. Michael accepted without hesitation. That, more than anything, unsettled her. She spent 3 evenings drafting the document, not continuously, in fragments. She wrote for 20 minutes, stopped, closed the file. The next night, she deleted a paragraph without replacing it. What remained felt thin, accurate, but incomplete. The language shifted as she wrote, not because she chose it to, because it demanded to. Sentences became shorter, colder. Subject expressed consistent narrative themes. Content decreased over time without intervention. No signs of distress observed. All true, all insufficient. On the 4th evening, she added one final line. Observer refrained from interpretive engagement. She stared at it for a long time. Then she saved the file and sent it. No attachment, just text in the body of the email. Michael replied the next morning. "Thank you. This is exactly the level of restraint we were hoping for." Emily read the message twice. Restraint. That was the word. At the review meeting, one she attended remotely, camera off, her contribution was read aloud by someone else, not her voice, not her rhythm. She listened as her words were placed into context, compared, bracketed. "Consistent internal narrative," someone said. "Resolution without escalation," another added. A third voice mentioned developmental integration. Emily didn't speak. She watched the cursor blink at the edge of the shared document. When the meeting ended, nothing felt resolved, only smaller. That night, Oliver found her sitting at the kitchen table, laptop closed. "You sent it," he said. "Yes." "Do you feel better?" Emily considered the question. "I feel quieter," she said. Oliver nodded. "That makes sense." She waited. Once something is written for other people, he said, it stops being yours. Emily looked at him. Are you okay with that? Oliver shrugged. It was never mine, he said. I was just holding it for a while. He paused. And now you did. Later, alone, Emily opened the notebook one last time. She compared it to what she had sent. The difference wasn't content, it was presence. The notebook still held pauses, silences, moments that didn't resolve into language. The document didn't. She closed the notebook and returned it to the drawer. This time she locked it, not out of fear, out of respect, because the story had entered a space where precision mattered more than meaning, and that space was never where it had lived. The response didn't come immediately. Emily half expected that. Academic processes move slowly, carefully. They don't rush toward meaning. 2 weeks passed, then 3. Then, one afternoon, another email appeared. Not from Michael, from an address she didn't recognize. A coordinator, neutral language, professional distance. Your submission has been reviewed. It has been categorized as a resolved developmental narrative. No further action is recommended. Thank you for your contribution. That was it. No questions, no follow-up. The story had been placed somewhere, filed, contained. Emily closed the message and didn't forward it to anyone. That evening, she took a walk alone along the lake. The water was still. Late afternoon light flattened everything into shades of gray and gold. She noticed how easily the mind searches for significance once something has been labeled complete. She resisted it. At home, Oliver was at the table doing homework, math problems, straightforward. How was your day? She asked. Fine, he said. No hesitation. She sat across from him and watched him work for a moment. Someone read about you, she said finally. Oliver didn't look up. Okay. They didn't have any questions. That's good, he replied. Why? He paused, pencil hovering. Questions mean it's still open, he said. And it's not. Emily nodded. Later that night she found the locked drawer open. The notebook was on the desk. Oliver stood beside it, hands in his pockets. I didn't read it, he said before she could ask. I just wanted to see if it was still there. And? Emily asked. It is, he said. That means you kept your part. She waited. I don't remember what I said back then, he added. Not really. Does that bother you? She asked. Oliver shook his head. No, he said. It means it worked. She didn't ask what it was, because she understood now. Memory wasn't the point. Presence had been. That night, Emily wrote one final line, not in the notebook, on a blank page she later threw away. Some things speak once, and that is enough. She didn't keep it. She didn't need to, because the echo had already done what echoes do. It faded, not into nothing, but into distance. There is a temptation at the end of stories like this to explain, to gather the pieces, to name what happened. Emily resisted that impulse. Life had returned to its ordinary rhythm, mornings, schedules, small arguments about nothing important. Oliver grew taller, learned new things, forgot others. No signs pointed backward. Years later, when Emily spoke about memory in lectures, she chose her words carefully. She spoke about development, integration, the way the brain releases what it no longer needs. She never spoke about certainty. At home, the notebook remained locked away, not hidden, just finished. One afternoon, long after the review group had dissolved and the emails had been archived, Emily and Oliver sat by the lake. No reason, just time. The water moved slowly, uninterested in conclusions. Oliver skipped stones, counted none of them. After a while, he spoke. "Do you think people remember everything that matters?" Emily watched the ripples fade. "No," she said. "I think they remember what they're meant to carry." Oliver nodded. "And the rest?" She waited. "I think it passes through," she said. "Like weather." Oliver considered that. "That sounds right," he said. They didn't talk after that. They didn't need to, because whatever this had been, memory, imagination, coincidence, something unnamed, it had followed its own shape. It arrived, it was witnessed, and then it let go. There was no revelation, no proof offered, only a record of what was said when it was said and who was there to hear it. And one question remains, not answered, not resolved, only held. What do you do when something meaningful happens and leaves without asking to be explained? The story ends here, not because it is finished, but because nothing more needs to be added.